The figure 8 is an exercise that you can use to practice any maneuver from basic up to super complex. It's a very controlled maneuver and is done slow and paused, which will teach you control and precision down low without putting the helicopter at risk. The figure 8 is 2 circuits in opposite directions, so you'll go through all of the orientations twice. There's a left circuit and a right circuit, so you'll also be doing your moves with turns in both directions. Each circuit is made up of 8 points, so in the hesitation 8s you'll be stabilizing at each point, and in the flying 8s you'll be doing your maneuver at each point. We'll go through a logical progression starting with forward flips and move all the way up to Piro tictocs, and maybe even some 4-point tictoc figure 8s. So let's look at the paused versions first. The paused figure 8s start from the center and we'll do 8 moves per circuit. Let's start with some forward flips. This is going to be straight away to the first point. And you stabilize, move to the quarter circuit, stabilize. And now we're halfway around. So what you're aiming to do here is to stabilize at each point, think about where you have to be next, and then try and make a pure stick input. So the main shaft should go over nice and cleanly, and you should pause exactly where you were aiming for. Then you start the circuit that goes the right hand way. Three. Four, and stabilize. Point number 5. 6. So there are a lot of subtleties that you're actually, although this may seem fairly simple, there are some subtleties that you're learning. Okay, so now we've done the forward ones, we can go into backwards from there. So the subtleties are, it's not a straight back flip, so you're not just using pure elevator. So as you go over, you'll actually be feeding in a slight amount of aileron to get it to twist and land exactly in the right point. And you'll also be using the rudder and the collective as well. So this is a super maneuver for learning control and full control over the model. So still 8 points. That's number 4. 5. 6 will be parallel to the flight line. And complete. So the next one we'll look at is some sideways rolling. This is very similar, except that the nose is going to point to the center. And we're going to move to that first point. So very similar to the forward flips and backward flips. It's a aileron, mostly, for the roll. But there's some very subtle feed-ins of elevator to get it to move smoothly and rotate while it's in the air. And you can see if you keep your eye on that cyclic stick on the right. Starts with a roll, and then as it gets towards the top, it kind of feeds up a little bit of elevator to get it to twist. That's the first circuit done. Stabilize. So the stabilization and then the visualization of where the next point is going to be is very important. If you just kind of do this randomly with no consistency, you're not going to get much out of the exercise. But if you think about where it's going to be, make it go there. You can get a lot of benefits out of this exercise. So that was right rolling. You can go straight into left rolling. And this is going to be exactly the same all the way around. You're going to complete the 8, pausing, stabilizing. So we can just go move on to the next one. This is going to be similar to the forwards and back flips. It's tumbles. So you're going to do a tumble to the first point, backwards tumble to the second point, third, So there's a lot of control going on here. You're having to guide the path, mostly with elevator again, with little subtleties of aileron. And that's first circuit finished. Point number 4, 5, and that should be complete. I think we may have done an extra flip in there. And similar thing again. So you can now do the forward tumbles. You want to hit all of those marks. You want to make sure it's not drifting as it gets to the top of the tumble. And then go into the second circuit. And complete that exactly the same. Next we'll do the tumbles, but with half piros. So your nose up to nose up, and back to nose up. So you're actually alternating the Piro direction on this. So the nose is swinging out each time. So at the bottom, the nose is pointing out, out. Okay. That's the first circuit. Now here, your nose will be pointing in. Right, so if you make a mistake, this is what you want to do is just go back a quarter. And just do that again and start again. You don't want to go right back to the beginning because you'll end up practicing things that you already know and making the same mistakes probably when you get to the point where you've made that error. So just go back a quarter, redo, and then this one in the second rotation, the nose was obviously going through the center. Now we'll do some half Piro flips. So this is going to be forward, half Piro flip to nose forward again. Half Piro flip to point number 2, and you want to pause it, think about it where it's going to be or where it's going to go. Point number 4, nose forward. Point number 5, nose forward. And these are left rudder half Piro flips. So each time using left rudder. Now we're going to do the other circuit. And these are really great for teaching you control because you might have a bias where you found, let's say, the left circuit easier because the rudder kind of leads into it. It tends towards your strengths, whereas now, because you're doing the second circuit and that's going the other direction, you'll find suddenly you struggle a bit more, even though it's a tiny, tiny difference. So you can do these backwards as well. So I've reversed the tail rudder direction as well. So these are right rudder, half Piro flips. And each time you're going into tail first, tail first. Okay, and right rudder, and we're changing the circuit direction. Point number 7, and back to the center. We do some tictocs and the flying figure 8s later on, but let's do some slow ones now. Pause it, and then out to point number 1. Back to center. Out to point number 2. It's 3. So these are looking fairly consistent. You'll know when you have a weakness because the model tends to drift. and you'll probably gain height, which is not what you want, because what that means is you're making the right stick inputs, but you actually don't have control. Back to center, and then complete that back to point number 8 or 0. And then you'll go into the other circuit. So really good. And this exercise leads on to we do a flying figure 8 later on, where we do proper tictocs, and we do a similar sort of thing, but we do it at flying speed. And we'll do 8 tictocs per circuit. So almost exactly the same maneuver, just faster. Let's move on to full Piro flips. So this is going to be one full Piro flip to the next point. So we went from nose first to tail first. The nose first, halfway around. Tail first at the next point. And these are left rudder full Piro flips. And then, depending on your biases, this going around the next circuit might be a bit trickier. Nose first, tail first inverted. And obviously, if you make a mistake or you don't feel that the main shaft is a nice pure movement from one point to the next, that main shaft's got to really go over straight. Take it back a quarter, try it a couple of times. And you can do them backwards as well, or the other direction. So this is right rudder. So we're doing a full Piro flip. And because we started these backwards, obviously it's going to go from backwards to forwards inverted, whoops, to backwards inverted. Tail first, nose first, tail, nose, and the last point back to the start position. And the last one we're going to look at for the paused figure 8s are the half Piro tictocs. So from the center, you're going to do a half Piro tick, and then a half Piro toc back. Point number 4, half to center. Point number 5, half Piro to center. 6, and then the center on the other side. So that's point number 1, point number 2. Yeah, I think this is it's quite a fun exercise. And I love the fact that you'll find really odd things, like the model will very easily, let's say, do the left-hand circuit, but you'll really struggle with something on the right-hand circuit. It's just one of the things that amazes me about flying model helicopters sometimes, that it's not the model, it's you. So let's move on to the flying figure 8s. So the flying figure 8s, because they are moving, they either start from the left or the right, parallel to the flight line, and you'll enter the first circuit at the point nearest to the flight line. So you'll normally start counting 1, 2, 3, and then you should be in the center, and then you'll enter the circuit to the other direction. Do your 8 points, then go back to the original circuit, do 5 or 6 points, and then you should exit along the flight line again. So let's have a look at our first flying figure 8. This is a right rolling exercise. So 1 roll, 2, and 3 to center. Change direction. 1, 2, 3. Halfway around. 6, 7, and 8. And then you enter the second circuit. 2, 3, and 6, and exit. And we'll do it backwards. 1, 3, change circuit. 4, That's 8, and change circuit again. 1, 2, 5, 6, and out. Then of course, if you've done right rolling circuits, you need to do left rolling as well. I'll do this one a bit quicker. But you're doing exactly 8 rolls per circuit. And the whole reason for that is because you want complete control over the model. If you just start rolling and you let it finish and you just do any number of rolls, you don't actually have pure control. What you're doing is you're just managing the direction. Whereas if you know exactly where you have to be, exactly how many you want, then you have real control over all over what the model, exactly what the model's doing. So that was the second circuit, and then back to finish the first circuit. And exit along the flight line. Sideways tumbling is another good one. So here you're tumbling into the circuit. You do 3, change direction. Oh, having to work really hard to get it to move and stay at speed. First circuit done. 0.4, 5, and 6. Oh, I'm not sure if we had an extra one in there or not. So tumbling, you definitely want to do both ways, left and right. And the reason is that your rudder, the thrust from your rudder is pushing you around. So in one direction, you'll find it's fairly easy. You can actually just about keep the model flat and the tail thrust will push you along. In the other direction, you'll have to fight it. So you'll have to really lean over quite a lot. So in this direction, I'm actually going against the tail thrust. The model probably has to lean a bit more. Let's do some left rudder half Piro tictocs. 3 and back to center. 1, 2, 3, 4. Center. Switch. And exit. And then of course you want to do it both directions. So this is one of those fun maneuvers where you'll have a favorite direction to move. And when you practice the other direction, you find it's a real fight, a worthwhile fight. And then if you've done left rudder half Piro tictocs, you obviously need to do right as well. Everything the same, all applies. May or may not be your favorite direction. You really, really have to work it. And if you make a mistake or if it doesn't look right, go back a quarter, do it again. Let's do some full Piro tictocs this time. Center, 2, 3. So I'm going to do the next circuit. So these aren't going to be full speed Piro tictocs. You need to keep them nicely controlled. You can do them a little bit higher as well, because it's not a simple maneuver. But same rules. Do 8 and out. And of course you have to change the direction as well. Now we're going to get onto some super complex versions. So this is going to be full-on Piro flipping. Point number 2, to the center, other circuit. 1, 2, 3. So these are very tricky maneuvers, but you want to be in the ballpark. You want to keep it the same size that you've been flying all along. You don't want to do these ones too low, and it's too easy to make mistakes. So that was Piro flipping with left rudder. Now you have to do the same thing with right rudder. It's to center, change direction. 1, 2, 3. You could see I was stabilizing that one for a bit, it just wobbled. Back to center, and we're going to go back to the original circuit. And there we go, and complete. Another super one is the paint stirrer figure 8. So you're going to do a paint stir at each point again, so 8 per circuit. This is definitely not a very clean version. So that one could definitely do with some work. You could see that the height was changing, I was dropping, I was climbing, and the shape wasn't really great. Let's try some nose wobble tictocs. So these are aileron tictocs where the nose goes down, up, down, up. So these are slower than you would normally do in a flight, but we're just working on precision and control. And if we've done them backwards, we should do them forwards. 3, 1, 2. Seven and 8. 1, 2. 6 and out. So sometimes you want to pick on a very specific maneuver or attitude of the helicopter. So while I was doing the nose wobble tictocs, I realized that in the nose down position, I actually had a bit of a weakness. So I thought I will pick on that weakness by doing a 45-degree nose down figure 8. So it's a good way to pick on a weakness sometimes. And then the last example we'll give you today is a 4-point tictoc in a figure 8. This is more of a maneuver than an exercise. It's a good one to try. And the center, 1, 2, 3, and out. In conclusion, this is a brilliant exercise that can be used by any level of pilot with any maneuver. It practices the main orientations and rotations and will give you skill and confidence down low. There is a list of variations in the description below, and if you think of any others, let me know and I'll add it to the list so other pilots can give it a go. Until next time, good luck.